guys, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about the W609-10 Hex Copter. It's a fairly new addition to the toy quadcopter line, or multi-rotor line rather, and it is a 6-arm, 6-rotor copter, also known as the Pathfinder. This one specifically is Sword and Shadow middle size HexCopter, and the model number is W609-10. Now it seems to be an upgraded model from the 9 and previous models. I'm not sure how those were. This is the first one I have to review, so I'll just show you the pros and cons of this one. We'll go through all of the parts you get in the box. We'll go through settings, how to control it, and we'll also go take it outside for a few flights, and also some inside flights, and kind of do a final pros and cons after I've flown this for about 10 flights now, and so it'll give you a good a good idea of how this thing is. So let's get started. So in the box you get the HexCopter itself. It's got, of course, 6 blades, 6 rotors, 6 motors. You also get your screwdriver. You also get, this version comes with a camera and a 4 GB micro SD card included in the camera. This is a 720p high-def camera. Seems like it's okay. For the cost, this is around $50 to $60 toy multi-rotor HexCopter. So for the cost, getting a camera that's pretty decent quality. Also comes with a 650 mAh LiPo battery pack with a JST connector style. Also you get a USB charger. You can plug this into any like wall phone charger, USB charger, and then the other end is where the battery would plug into. And for viewing your video files, they give you a USB stick where you would put the actual micro SD, plug it right in here, and then plug this into your computer, and you can watch your video files that way. Also, what's great is you also get actually 4 spare rotors. This is a 6-rotor craft, but at least they give you 4 white rotors. They don't give you any red rotors, so you may have to order extra ones if you need red ones, but there's a lot of sites that are actually very cheap. I'll have a link in the description on where you can order spare parts for this, and also where you can purchase it from. Here's the landing gear. They give you this nice aluminum landing gear, pretty durable. It actually comes off in the box, and it you do have to screw it on if you want to, but it actually is pretty tight just pushing it into the quad. And after you get reasonably good at flying, you may want to take these off just because they're not very much weight, but for wind resistance and also weight of flying with these on, you will get a little more flight with these off. If you are going to be using the camera on it, I would recommend to keep the legs on, just because if you have the camera on and you do try to set it down without the legs on, the camera will hit the ground. Without the camera, no problem. It's got these little stubs here that actually keep it pretty level without the legs. And then of course here's your transmitter here. It's just it takes 4 AA batteries, and it's just your basic transmitter. You've got your throttle on the left side on this version. This is a mode 2 controller where the throttle's on the left. You also have your yaw rate left and right here. You've got your yaw trim. If it's rotating in one direction or the other, this will trim it out for you. Just click it here. This button here actually will turn off and on the lights if you push it up once for lights off. Again, for lights on, this will save you battery power if you're flying in the day and don't need the lights. At night, you probably want to keep those on. Pushing the down on this one here This will give you actually the high rate mode. This has two modes. When you first start it up, it has a beginner rate where it's real easy and doesn't really pitch too much in any direction. So it's easy to fly like indoors. But once you get out like in the wind and stuff, you probably want to push down on this. You'll hear two beeps, and that'll give you the highest pitch mode. So it'll actually be able to fight the wind a little better and go a little faster. And of course, these are your trim buttons for your roll and your pitch on the controller. Forward, back, left, strafe right. And if you do notice it's getting a little drifting in one direction or the other, you would just hit these and you'll hear beeps to actually trim it to make it a little more level. When you do first fly the HexCopter, you're probably going to want to reset the gyro, and the way you do that is you just set it on a very level surface and you put both sticks down to the left corners. You're going to see it start to flash the lights on the HexCopter, and as soon as you see them flash, you just let go of the sticks, and that will reset the gyro to its level settings. So if you have, if you're having any trouble where it's flying kind of weird in one direction, go ahead and do this first, reset the gyros, and then go ahead and do your trimming to get it flying right. And the last two features of the transmitter are the two buttons on top. So the right hand button will actually be your camera start and stop button. So if the quad's on or the hexacopter's on and you click this one time, you'll hear a beep, and the actual camera on the bottom will start to flash red. You'll see a little red flashing here. And on the left hand trigger here, you'll click it in once for, that's flip mode. So when you do click it, you'll hear a beep, and any direction you push on the pitch or roll stick, it'll do one flip. Keep in mind, if you do hold it, I've had some instances where I did hold it and it did like numerous flips. So you're going to want to do a flip and kind of let go just to make sure you don't flip and then fall to the ground by accident. So anyway, let's go ahead and just show you how to set this up. How to put the landing gear on, put the camera on, plug it all in, put the battery in, and then we'll do some flying. So first up, out of the box, you're just going to want to take off your battery cover. And the battery cover has two things. It's got this kind of lever here, latch mechanism. So you would unlatch that, and then you just push the whole thing away from the latch. And it's got these two tabs here that actually will snap out, and you can remove the battery cover. It's kind of neat inside. You can see the aluminum arms where they all connect into the chassis here. Kind of a neat design. Anyway, putting in the battery, basically just stick it in like this. I find it easier to plug it in first, push it in nice and tight, and then you just stick the battery in, and then the wire will just kind of push over the battery like this. And it's nice, it does have an on-off switch, so that's really nice. Some of these cheaper toy quadcopters or multi-rotor copters in general don't really have an on-off switch the cheaper you get, so that's a nice feature to have that on-off switch. And then you would just put it in, put the battery door on in reverse order. Just line up the slots, the left and right slots here. Push it forward so it snaps in. And then you can, or you don't really have to latch this. I find when the camera is on, it's kind of extra work to actually latch this and unlatch this, because the camera actually blocks the latching mechanism a little bit. So you can actually leave it unlatched, and it seems like the door won't come off, so that's an option to you. Okay, and so installing the camera, basically just find the front of the quad. The front has these little eyes here. It's kind of it's kind of like a beetle insect look to it. It's kind of interesting. So anyway, you got the camera up front. The camera's kind of neat, it rotates. So before you take off, you can kind of rotate if you're looking for more of a ground orientation shot overhead. You can rotate it down towards the ground, or if you want a straight ahead shot, you can rotate it straight parallel to the HexCopter. Or you could even rotate it a little bit, because as you fly, the craft will actually tilt like this, and if you want to keep that level looking flight, be it you will have these in the view when you have this rotated up, but if you want to keep it kind of level while you're flying forward, you could actually also rotate this up a little bit. So that's entirely up to you. And so the way this goes on is it's got these 4 screws. You just put it right on these little tabs here and screw them in. When you are screwing it in, just make sure that the camera cable is not being encumbered by the screws or being damaged by when you screw it in. So you just want to kind of keep this free of the screws. And the way you plug this in is it only goes in one way. You can just kind of look at the orientation and plug it straight in. Give it a good push so it seats kind of level there into the quad, and you are ready to go with the camera. Make sure that your micro SD card is installed. The way it installs in this is the writing will be facing the craft on top, and then you just push it in and you'll hear a click, let go, and that means it's seated. So let's move on to the landing gear. So the landing gear is real simple to install. It does come with some screws if you wanted to secure it a little more, but I found that it's really tight if you just push it in and then kind of push it into its notches here. And I have had a couple crashes and haven't had it come out at all, so it should be fine. So that's an option. They give you a bag of extra screws here if you did want to screw on the landing gear and fix it to the craft here just for a little more peace of mind, so that the landing gear won't fall out. But I don't see any problem with it. If you leave it out, it lets you kind of release the landing gear quickly if you wanted to. Okay, so that's it. So there it is with the landing gear on, the camera on, and it's ready to go. So one more thing is the manual here. I forgot to show you guys. Just your basic manual. It's pretty good actually. It goes through all of the features of the craft, how to set it up. Pretty easy to follow, how to use the camera, all that stuff. And then it shows you some of the spare parts if you ever need spare parts. Okay, so let's get out in the park and do some flying, and also do some indoor flying and see how she does. Welcome back. We've had a few flights with this thing, took some video of it, and let's kind of do a rundown on the pros and cons of this great little hexacopter. First, let's go with the cons, and then we'll switch over to the pros. So the cons for me were, the major con was the range on the controller. The controller is, it's a $50 to $60 hexacopter, so the controllers aren't going to be that great, but I really think they could improve the range on these models by just putting either the right wavelength of antenna. Sometimes the antennas are just way inside, and in this case, this one, it doesn't even use this in any way to bring the antenna up and out. So I'm going to actually make another video on how to mod this controller. So stay tuned on that to give it way better range. I was only getting about 100 feet with this one before it would drop out, depending on the angle, of course. And this was at the park where there wasn't really too much interference. So I would say, depending on the angle, I was getting between 100 and 150 feet, which is slightly less than what's advertised, but that's kind of the way it is with these multi-rotor toy copters. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to do a mod on this controller on how to bring the antenna out here and actually it should give it way better range. So stay tuned for that one. Besides that, the controller seems okay. It's just your regular type of toy quad controller. Moving on to the multi-rotor hexacopter itself, I'd have to say it's a fun hexacopter. For the cool factor is what will intrigue kids and people the most. It's a good beginner multi-rotor. It does have 6 blades and 6 arms, so it is for the most part more stable than quadcopter with 4 blades. It is actually a pretty good camera multi-rotor. Since you have 2 more propellers, you actually get a little more stability while it's hovering level and rotating. So where I was flying it, it was pretty windy. It was about 15 with 20 mile per hour gusts. But it did, in the high rate mode, it was able to move into the wind and fly pretty easily with even that much amount of wind. So I'd have to say that is a good point. Let's see, I'm trying to think of a few cons on this. The only cons I can think of are the build material might crack easily if you do crash it, like on concrete or something. This is a really hard and brittle material. This is just speculation at this point, but I would assume that if you do get a few crashes, this will have some cracks. It'll probably still fly fine, but you might get some cracks. I really can't think of too much more cons on this. I haven't had any motor failures, so that's good. I haven't had to change any props. I haven't bent any props. I have had a couple of crashes on the grass in the park, and it seems like everything is fine. The only thing that happened is one of these arms, you see how they can slightly separate a little bit? They kind of wiggle in there. I think one of them, it crashed on an arm and then it just pushed this plastic up a little bit and I just had to snap it back down. But that was really it. As far as the flight times, I was getting about, with the camera on and recording and the landing gear, I was getting 5 to 6 minutes with the included 650 milliamp battery. So that's pretty darn good for a little bit heavier of a craft like this with 2 extra motors that it's trying to power with a 650 milliamp battery. That's pretty good to get 5 to 6 minutes of runtime while recording video. Without the landing gear and without the camera on, I was actually getting about 8 to 9 minutes of runtime with the stock battery. I also have tried a 750 mAh Turnigy battery, which I'll have a link for in the description, which actually gave me even more time. That gave me like 10 to 11 minutes, maybe even 12 without the landing gear and stuff on. So of course, the more higher capacity battery you get, the more flight time you're going to get. So I would recommend getting a few of those just to have on standby if this is your first multi-rotor copter. But besides that, I'm going to give this a 2 thumbs up. I think it's a really good beginner hexacopter. It's got a cool factor. Kids love it. Took it over to my friend's house and they were just ecstatic about the way it looked. They couldn't get over how cool it looked. And it flew really well too. It was easy for them to fly, easy for me to fly. So if you'd like to pick one of these up, actually this is a review model from gearbest.com. I'll have the links in the description on where to buy this if you're interested. And hopefully you'll have fun with it. Anyway, stay tuned for more videos and like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.